the PowerPoint visible to all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Today we will discuss mainly about step 3 opioids. The things which we are going to discuss: what are the commonly used opioids in the step 3, what are the mechanism of action of opioids, what are the practical aspects when you use opioids, and what are the common side effects, and how will you monitor the toxicities, and this will be an interactive session. So I request all of you to come up. Uh, so when you are not speaking, please mute yourself. Um, so I will be taking this session as an interactive session. So this will be mostly on case-based discussion, and I request all of you to come up with your answers. Okay. So this is the WHO analgesic ladder, which we have been seeing for past 2-3 classes. And we know that only in the first step there is no opioid, but from second step onwards we have opioids. So in the second step we have weak opioids, and third step we have strong opioids. So let's see this person. From this photo, what problem is he suffering from? Anybody? What does his face tell you? Anybody? I don't. In the chat box, there are some.
Job. Sir, on chat, jaw pain.
Jaw pain. Okay. So this patient is. Yeah.
Severe uncontrolled pain.
Okay. Yeah.
Uncon-
So all the answers are true. This patient is suffering from a severe pain. So this is a 56-year-old man with carcinoma of the larynx, and his main problem is pain around neck. And he says it is 10/10 on the pain scale, and it is a sharp pain. There is no radiation. So when you talk about pain, the pain assessment, you know that we are assessing PQRST. So P is the palliative and provocative factors, Q is the quality of the pain, R is the radiation, S is severity, and T is the temporal factors. So here it is worst imaginable pain. And he was suffering from this pain for the last 2 weeks. And because of this, he was unable to sleep. So you can think of how severe the pain is. The person who is unable to sleep for the last 2 weeks is coming to your clinic. So how will you manage this patient? Anybody?
Yes.
Nothing is one voice came.
Mercy, you are
That is
Mercy, you are not audible. Can you type it in the chat box? Shiva, is there answers in the chat box?
no, sir.
Okay. Is my audio clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So this patient with severe pain, and if any patient in severe pain, you can sorry, 1 minute. Okay, so this patient, after half an hour or so, he was able to smile. And what wonder we did for this? So we did an intravenous morphine trial. So what is intravenous morphine trial or intravenous morphine titration? So patients with severe pain, you can reduce the pain by giving intravenous morphine in a titrated fashion. So what will you do? You will give injection morphine 1.5 milligram at 10 minutes interval. So morphine will be given every 10 minutes interval, 1.5 milligram. So one ampule of morphine which is available to us contains 15 milligram and 1 ml. So 1 ml is diluted with 9 ml of normal saline. So total it will be 10 ml. So each ml will be 1.5 milligram. So injection morphine is given 1.5 milligram at 10 minutes interval. And when you administer morphine, the immediate side effect which you have to expect is nausea or vomiting. So you have to first give injection metoclopramide 10 milligram IV followed by the first dose of injection morphine. And how long will you continue this? How long will you continue to give morphine? So this is the end point. Either the patient should have satisfactory pain relief, or patient should develop sleepiness, whichever be the first. Okay, so for IV morphine trial, you can make a chart like this, which indicates time, pulse rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure, pain score, is the patient drowsy or not, and the dose of injection morphine. Suppose this patient came to us at 10 a.m. You will record pulse rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure, pain score. You will look whether the patient is drowsy or not. And then you will administer first dose of injection morphine, 1.5 milligram. And you will wait for 10 minutes. So at 10:10, you will again look for pulse rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure. You will ask what is the pain score now. Now the pain score has come down to 7. You will ask, are you feeling drowsy? The patient is not drowsy. So you will give another 1.5. So you can continue to do this. Either the patient has satisfactory pain relief or patient develop drowsiness. So you can see this patient has taken 4.5 milligram of injection morphine and pain score has come down to 1. And you can stop the injection morphine titration now because the patient has good pain relief. So if the patient is on patient has good pain relief with 4.5 milligram, what will you do next? Is this intravenous morphine titration an inpatient procedure or outpatient procedure? Anybody? You can type it in the chat box.
Question.
Yeah. Is this an inpatient procedure or outpatient procedure? IV morphine trial.
It is an inpatient procedure.
Okay. So I see that there are some chat.
ഇനിയുള്ള ഇപ്പൊ തന്നെ ഇട്ടെ അല്ല നമുക്ക് തന്നെ എഡിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും
Sir, inpatient procedure.
In the chat box, all
Yes.
are inpatient procedure.
Yes.
Okay. So what you have to understand is we can safely administer injection morphine as an outpatient procedure. So we are doing this maybe at least one per day. So this is a safe outpatient procedure, and it doesn't require any inpatient facility. Okay. So once this patient has good relief with injection morphine, so what will you do next? How will you send this patient home? So you have to give tablet morphine. So how much tablet will you start for this patient who has taken 4.5 milligram of IV morphine? Okay. So 4.5 good pain relief. So what would be the oral dose of morphine? Please type your answers in the chat box, or you can unmute and speak.
Sir, one chat oral morphine 2.5 milligram.
Okay. Anybody else?
Again 2.5 milligram.
Okay. So, can any of you explain why 2.5 milligram? Please unmute and speak. Okay. For this patient who has taken 4.5 milligram with good pain relief, you can directly convert this much dose into the oral dose. So 4.5 milligram IV morphine means you can give 4.5 milligram of oral tablet. That is tablet. Okay. So 4.5 milligram tablets are not available. So the you have to also understand what is the lowest strength of morphine tablet available. For us, it is 10 milligram, which is a sport tablet. So you can break it into half, so that each half is 5 milligram. So you will give morphine, tab morphine, 5 milligram. Okay. So morphine has only 4 hours of duration of action. So you have to give it every 4 hourly. So this is how you will give, or you will administer morphine. So tab morphine 10 milligram. When the patient wakes up, you will give the first dose. That is half, 5 milligram. And from 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m., you will give half. And at bedtime, you will give double dose. So regular dose is half, and that is 5 milligram, and at bedtime you will give the double strength, that is 10 milligram. In addition, you can also give SOS dose of morphine, which is as that of regular dose. So morphine has to be given every 4 hours. Okay. So for those who don't have injection morphine, you can give oral morphine. So how will you administer oral morphine? So for those patients who are not on any opioids, including weak opioids, for those patients, you can start morphine 5 milligram 4 hourly and SOS. But for those patients who are on weak opioids or already on 5 milligram of morphine, you can start directly 10 milligram of oral morphine every 4 hourly and SOS. So many of you may not have injectable morphine, so you can give oral morphine to the patient if the patient has severe pain. So if the patient is not on any opioids, start with 5 milligram 4 hourly and SOS. And if the patient is on weak opioid, you can start with 10 milligram Q4H. Q4H means 4 hourly and SOS. Okay. So our patient, Mr. X, he was started on 5 milligram of morphine 4 hourly and SOS. And for the last 2 weeks he was comfortable, pain free, but thereafter he needed to take about 4 SOS dose of morphine per day for the last 4 days. So what shall we do now? Do we need to do anything now when the patient is taking 4 SOS dose of morphine? Anybody?
Sir, on chat, we can increase the dose.
Okay. So there are 3-4 answers coming.
Yes.
All are saying to increase.
Have to titrate the dose.
This is an indication to increase the dose of morphine. So how much would you increase? So when will you increase the dose of morphine? If the patient is taking 2 or more SOS dose. PRN is same as SOS dose. Okay. So if the patient is taking 2 or more than 2 SOS doses, then you can increase the dose of morphine. Even after 24 hours, you can increase the dose of morphine. So how much you can increase? 30 to 50% of the total morphine. So our patient was taking 5 milligram. Okay. So our patient was taking 5 milligram. So if you increase 5 milligram by 30%, what is the 30% of 5 milligram? 5 into 30 by 100. That will be 1.5 milligram. So it is not practical to increase 1.5 milligram. So you can increase up to 50%. So 50% of 5 is 2.5. So you can increase it up to 7.5 milligram. 7.5 milligram every 4 hourly. Or some patients finds it difficult to break the tablet into 4 pieces to take 7.5 milligram. So you can increase it up to 10 milligram. That will be 100% increase. But if it is extremely difficult for the patient, we can advise that. So another question would be, how frequently would you give SOS dose of morphine? So I already told you that morphine can be given 4 hourly and SOS. But how frequently we can give SOS dose of morphine? Anybody? Anybody? Somebody has logged in from 2 devices. That's why the echo is there. So can that person log out from one of the devices? Shiva, I can see many answers. What is it?
Sir, the SOS dose and hourly, Q4 hourly, minimum 1 hour interval, no limit dose. That's it.
Okay. So I meant how frequently. That is, if the person has taken 5 milligram of morphine at 6 a.m., when can you give the next dose of morphine safely? That was the question. Okay. For this, we have to understand little bit of pharmacology of morphine. So you can see this plant is Papaver somniferum, which is the scientific name of the plant from which morphine and many other opioids are derived. And this is also known as poppy plant. So you can see the poppy plant, and this seed like structure is known as pod, pod. And this is the most abundant source of opium. And from this, you can see the farmers are making small cuts on the pods, and you can see the sap oozing out from the pod. So this sap is collected and dried it in the sunlight, and it is transported into government opium and alkaloid factories. And from this sap, they make opium powder. And from the opium powder, we can make morphine tablet and other forms of opioids. Okay. So opium is legally cultivated only in 3 states of India. That is UP, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan. So only these 3 states are allowed to cultivate poppy plant legally. But we also know that um, we know there are many people who illegally cultivate. We can see many news about it. Okay. So how morphine is absorbed? Morphine is absorbed from the upper small bowel, and it is water soluble, which is known as the hydrophilic property of the morphine. So because of the hydrophilic nature, morphine has a slow onset of action, but it has a longer duration of action. And there are some people who advise morphine to be administered sublingually, buccally, or gingivally. But this is not advisable because morphine is not fat soluble. Only fat soluble medications are absorbed sublingually. So you should not give it sublingually or buccally or gingivally. And if the patient has pain relief after sublingual or buccal or gingival administration, the research suggests that when they put this under this route, it is absorbed orally, and that's why they have pain relief. Okay. And another important thing you have to understand is morphine has a bitter taste. So if you powder the tablet of morphine for those who is unable to swallow, you should sweeten it with some juice or sugar. Otherwise, the patient will feel bitter. So what happens when you administer morphine orally? So it will go into the GI tract, and from the GI tract, it is absorbed into the small blood vessels of the intestine, and from there it will go into the portal vein, and from the portal vein to the liver. And in the liver, metabolism of morphine takes place, and metabolites are liberated into the systemic circulation. So metabolism mainly happens in liver, but a minor part of metabolism also occurs in intestine as well as kidney. And morphine, when morphine is given orally, it is absorbed 100%. And in the liver, 90% of this morphine is converted into metabolites. The metabolites, there are two main metabolites of morphine. One is morphine 3-glucuronide, or simply known as M3G, which is formed in large quantity. About 45 to 50% of the metabolites are morphine 3-glucuronide. And another metabolite is morphine 6-glucuronide, or M6G, which is formed in less quantity, only 5 to 10%. So these are the two main metabolites. But you have to understand that the morphine 6-glucuronide is the active component which will give you the pain relief. M3G doesn't have much action in our body. So M6G is the component which will give you pain relief. So I asked this question previously: how frequently we can give SOS dose of morphine? So we have to understand morphine has to be absorbed from the bowel, and it has to go into the portal vein, and metabolism takes place in the liver. And then only metabolites are liberated into the systemic circulation, which will give you pain relief. So this process takes about 30 minutes, and the peak would be about 1 hour. Peak would take about 1 hour. So it is better to administer SOS dose of morphine after 1 hour of the previous dose. Okay. So our patient who was Mr. X, who was started on 5 milligram of morphine, and because he has taken SOS doses, his dose was increased to 10 milligram. You can see he is now on 10 milligram morphine every 4 hourly. But the patient says it is difficult for him to take it every 4 hourly. And you can see that you might have seen many patients who complains of taking tablets frequently. So he says he's willing to take it if you give it less frequently. So are there any solution for this? Morphine can act only for 4 hours. So what can we do for this patient? Shiva, what was the chat comment?
So can give tab morphine sustained release in 2 dose.
Okay, so that's wonderful. So we can administer morphine as sustained release tablet. So sustained release tablet or controlled release tablet acts for 12 hours. So you need to give only for two doses or BD dosage. So 10 milligram 4 hourly is total will be 60 milligram, isn't it? So you can give tab morphine sustained release 30 milligram BD 12 hour. But the problem is it is about 4 to 5 times costlier than the fast acting tablet. And I know somebody told me that it is not available now in India. So what are the preparations of morphine available? Aqueous solutions or syrup are available. Tablets, as I told you, there are two types of tablet: immediate release tablet and controlled release tablet. Immediate release tablet, duration of action is only 4 hours. Controlled release tablet, duration of action is 12 hours. And injection is also available. The strength is variable from state to state and from country to countries. So these are the three types of, or 3 or 4 types of preparations available. So our patient, Mr. X, is on 10 milligram of morphine 4 hourly for the past 6 months. So he had very good pain relief for the past 6 months. And he usually don't visit you because he has pain relief. But then he was brought to you with complaints of excessive drowsiness. So you have seen this patient in the casualty now, and you see that patient is very much drowsy. So you ordered some investigations, including serum creatinine, and it was raised 5 milligrams per deciliter. So will you do anything with morphine dosage now? Do we need to do anything with morphine dosage now? Any comments?
No, sir.
Anybody?
Reduce dosage.
Sir, one chat reduce dosage.
Okay. So why this patient is drowsy? What is the reason for excessive drowsiness? Any comments?
Side effects, morphine toxicity.
Mhm. Okay. Uh, so I can see some answers are coming. What are the comments?
So reduce morphine and give amitriptyline. Side effects: switch opioid, excessive dose toxicity, adverse reaction of morphine.
Okay. We saw that. Yeah.
One more, renal stress, renal problems.
Hmm. Okay. So we already saw that morphine morphine is metabolized in the liver, but we did not talk about how it is excreted from the body. So morphine is excreted. Morphine and its metabolites are excreted from the body by the kidney. So what happens if the patient has renal failure? So morphine 6-glucuronide and other metabolites, they will accumulate in the body. It is not excreted from the body, or the excretion is reduced. So the morphine 6-glucuronide will cause excessive drowsiness and other neurotoxicities, and even it can even produce convulsions. So this patient with serum creatinine of 5 milligram per deciliter, so that the morphine and its metabolites are excreted very slowly, or very slower excretion. So because of that, the patient will develop the excessive drowsiness. So what we have to do is we have to increase the spacing. So instead of 4 hourly, you can give morphine either 6 hourly, 8 hourly, or 12 hourly, or even a single dose. And you can also reduce the dose of morphine. Instead of 10 milligram, you can make it 5 milligram. Okay. So because of renal failure, we had to reduce the dose of morphine to 5 milligram 8 hourly. So we started this patient on 5 milligram 8 hourly. So he was fine with 5 milligram 8 hourly. But after 2 months, he was unable to swallow anything, including morphine. Shiba, some comments are coming. What was those?
Dose reduction, lengthening the dose interval,
Yeah.
can give medication to improve kidney status.
Mm.
Switch to fentanyl patch.
Okay. Those are correct, and we will discuss more about later. Okay. So this patient was started on 5 milligram 8 hourly because of renal failure. After 2 months, because of extensive infiltration into the throat, he was unable to swallow anything, including water and morphine. So what will you do now for pain relief? He was very comfortable on tab morphine 5 milligram 8 hourly, but now he is unable to swallow anything, and he is at his home. So what will you do for pain relief now? Any answers?
Change to IV morphine, start injectable,
Mm,
fentanyl patch.
mm. So this patient is at home. So injectable morphine may be difficult, and he is on 15 milligram of morphine. So the fentanyl patch, even the lowest patch available, would not fit for this dose of morphine. So what can we do now?
Again, buprenorphine patch.
Buprenorphine.
Buprenorphine.
Okay, buprenorphine is a very costly medication, and there are some problems with the buprenorphine.
6 milligram fentanyl patch.
6 milligram. Okay.
Tab morphine, grinded and given through a nasogastric tube.
Okay, so the patient is unable to swallow even water. and morphine tablet is even powdered, it is not going in. So nasogastric tube is out of question. You will not be able to put a nasogastric tube. Okay, let's see what are the routes through which you can give morphine. So what are the routes through which we can administer morphine? So as all of you told, intravenous or subcutaneous route can be used, and oral route. You can give morphine also per rectally. You can administer morphine per rectally. Epidural, intrathecal, all these are possible routes. So for this patient who is at home, per rectal route would be a better choice. So you can administer same dose of morphine. So he was taking 5 milligram of morphine. You can administer 5 milligram per rectally. And the duration is also same, 8 hourly. He was taking 8 hourly previously. So you can administer 8 hourly per rectally. And which preparation should we use? We have to use fast acting tablet. So you can take 5 milligram of morphine tablet and make it a paste with 2 or 3 drops of water and rub it over the rectal mucosa. So it will give good pain relief. It will give the same pain relief as that of oral route. Okay. So oral route and rectal route is comparable in case of morphine. So we will move on to another patient, Mrs. K, 55-year-old lady with carcinoma of the colon, has abdominal pain, which is continuous and is on 10 milligram of morphine 4 hourly, and she doesn't require any SOS dose of morphine. A doctor has asked them to replace the morphine tablet with 25 microgram of patch, fentanyl patch. Next day, the patient reports to you telling that they replaced the fentanyl patch after 5 hours as she had no pain relief. What will you do now? So this patient replaced the patch after 5 hours because she didn't have pain relief. So let's see what are the preparations of fentanyl available. So injection is available, transdermal fentanyl patches are available, and oral transmucosal fentanyl citrate or OTFC, which is like a lollipop, is also available. Compared to morphine, fentanyl is lipophilic. So there are some points which you have to understand about transdermal fentanyl patch. So after application of fentanyl patch, the fentanyl will form a subcutaneous tissue depot, and this will take about 8 to 12 hours. And after 8 to 12 hours, fentanyl will be liberated into the systemic circulation. Suppose you have placed a 25 microgram of patch, it will liberate 25 microgram every hour. So that's what the strength of fentanyl patch indicates. So 12.5 microgram means 12.5 microgram every hour. So this patient replaced the patch after 5 hours. So by that time, a subcutaneous tissue depot will not be formed. So that's why the patient didn't have pain relief. So it is important to tell or for us to explain the action of fentanyl patch, and up to 8 to 12 hours, you have to continue to use the same opioid you were using previously. And the duration of action of one fentanyl patch is 72 hours. That is 3 days. And if the patient has fever, the absorption can be increased. And when you put the patch, you should not shave the area because there will be some aberrations and through which fentanyl can be absorbed more. So the area should not be shaved. And the most important thing in case of transdermal fentanyl patch is that you should apply transdermal fentanyl patch for only those patients whose pain is stabilized with morphine. So what is stabilized pain? Suppose a patient is taking 5 milligram morphine every 4 hourly or 10 milligram every 4 hourly. And the patient says, I am also taking 10 milligram tablets now and then in addition to the regular dose because I have pain in between. I am taking 4 or 5 SOS dose. So this patient's pain is not stabilized. His pain varies from time to time. That's why he has to take 4 or 5 SOS dose of morphine. So in such patients, you should not use transdermal phenyl patch because transdermal phenyl patch, the amount of drug delivered to the systemic circulation is constant. You will not be able to alter it. So you have to find out the dose of morphine at which the patient pain is stabilized. And only after stabilization, you can convert it into transdermal phenyl patch. Okay. So this is another patient, Mr. H, 70-year-old man with carcinoma of the lung, has neuropathic pain of right upper limb due to nerve infiltration. He is on morphine 10 milligram 4 hourly, amitriptyline 75 milligram HS, pregabalin 150 milligram BD. He attends your clinic with delirium, myoclonus, and doesn't have satisfactory pain relief. How will you manage this patient? Anybody? Any comments? So a patient on 10 milligram of morphine 4 hourly, amitriptyline 75 milligram HS, and pregabalin 150 milligram BD comes to you with delirium and myoclonus, and he also doesn't have pain relief. So how will you manage this patient? Any answers?
No, sir.
Okay. So we can use methadone, and methadone is a new, not a new opioid, but it is new for India, which has been marketed 2 years back. And some of the pharmacology about methadone is composed of S-methadone and R-methadone, which are the isomers of methadone. So methadone contains both S-methadone as well as R-methadone, and this methadone acts on the opioid receptors, mu, delta, and kappa. These are the 3 opioid receptors on which methadone acts as an agonist. And it also acts as an NMDA antagonist. NMDA is N-methyl D-aspartate antagonist. Anybody knows another NMDA antagonist? Can any of you name another NMDA antagonist which is useful clinically? Okay, we will continue, and you can, Shiba can watch the chat box. Yeah, somebody has come up with
On dopamine.
dopamine. Okay, I will continue. Then, in addition to the opioid agonist and NMDA antagonistic activity, methadone also is a serotonin and noradrenaline reuptake inhibitor. That means it acts like a tricyclic antidepressant. It acts like amitriptyline. Okay, so these are 3 actions of methadone which is beneficial for pain relief. But in addition, it also blocks human either agogo related gene, which is specifically present on the myocardium. And once the myocardial this HERG is blocked, it can increase the QT interval. It can produce torsade points, and which can lead on to sudden death. So this is one disadvantage of methadone, but this disadvantage occurs only with very high doses of methadone. The doses which we use in palliative care for pain management is very less, and usually it does not cause any HCRG blockade. And what you have to understand is when you administer um, methadone, it will take about 5 to 7 days for the dose to become stabilized. So after 5 to 7, you have to wait for 5 to 7 days to get good pain relief. So this is the most important point. More methadone will take about 5 to 7 days for good pain relief. So you have to wait for 5 to 7 days. Then only you can increase the dose of methadone. But in case of morphine, you can increase the dose every 24 hours. And uh, methadone is excreted mainly through bowel. So even if the patient has renal failure, you can safely administer methadone. So this is one of the safe drug in renal failure. And you can read this article, Safe and Appropriate Use of Methadone in Hospice and Palliative Care, Expert Consensus White Paper, by which, and you can get many information about methadone from this paper. And Indian Journal of Palliative Care has a supplement released on methadone. I think there are 6 to 8 sessions, 6 to 8 papers in the IJPC, which will give you a very good idea about how to use methadone. So I will give you a short summary of how we can use methadone. So this is some policy which we use for outpatients to start methadone. In inpatient, we have another thing, but this is this is a very simplified chart. You can see the most important thing is there should be a reliable caregiver. If the patient doesn't have a reliable caregiver, don't start on methadone. If the patient has reliable caregiver, then you have to ask about history of sudden unexplained death in family, because tossed points can occur in family, and you will get this history of sudden explained death. So if it is there, you should not start methadone. If there is no history of sudden explained death or congenital prolonged QT syndrome, you can directly start on methadone. If the patient is taking less than 60 milligram of morphine, you can start with 2 to 7.5 milligram of methadone. And if the patient is taking 60 to 199 milligram, then if the patient is less than 65 years, you have to use the ratio 10:1. So 100 milligram of morphine, and patient is less than 60 years, 100 by 10. So you can use 10 milligram of methadone. If the patient is more than 65 years, 100 by 20. So you have to use 5 milligram of methadone. So this is the dose advisable as per the white paper. So if the patient is not taking any opioid naive patients, so you have to start with 2 to 7.5 milligram of oral methadone per day. And if the patient is already on already on opioid and less than 60 milligram of morphine, you have to start with the previous dose, 2 to 7.5 milligram of methadone, and 60 to 199 milligram of morphine, and less than 65 years age, the conversion is 10:1. More than 200, conversion is 20:1. Some of the important thing which you have to be aware of methadone is it has many drug interactions. Many of the drugs which we use in palliative care can interact with methadone, and it can either decrease or increase the concentration of methadone in the blood. So it is important for us to have an idea of which all drugs interact with methadone. And by interacting this, it can increase the QT interval, and this QT interval increase can cause causative points and death. So many literature advises ECG before starting on methadone, and looking at hypokalemia, hypercalcemia, hyponatremia, uh, hypomagnesemia. So all these have been advised by many literatures. But as I told you earlier, only higher doses of methadone is going to cause problems, which we usually doesn't use in palliative care. We usually use less than 50 or 30 milligram of methadone. So usually these investigations, we usually don't do these investigations, uh, but if the patient has a curative intent treatment and has a longer prognosis, then we may have to do ECG and things like that. Otherwise, we usually don't do any investigations for starting methadone. And the most important thing is you have to wait for 5 to 7 days for increasing the dose of methadone. So this is the methadone tablet, which is available as 5 milligram tablet. And you can see the methadone syrup, which contains 5 milligram in 1 ml. So for this patient who has a neuropathic pain on 10 milligram of morphine, amitriptyline and pregabalin, he develops delirium and myoclonus. So this patient is a good candidate to start on methadone. So any patient with complicated neuropathic pain, any patient who develops toxicities with other opioids, or patient who has renal failure, methadone is a good choice. Okay, so we will move on to another patient. So Mr. P, 70-year-old man with carcinoma of the lung and is complaining of throbbing pain on right front of chest, continuous 5/10. So he has a moderate pain, 5/10. He is a non-epileptic and is on phenytoin 100 milligram BD. How will you manage his pain? Anybody? How are you going to this patient's pain who has moderate pain? Anybody? So this patient is a non-epileptic, and you have to understand that. So as per WHO analgesic ladder, for moderate pain, we have to use the second step. So second step, obviously, it is the tramadol, but tramadol decreases the seizure threshold. So this patient who is already an epileptic, and if you give tramadol, there is a chance that you can precipitate a seizure. So it would be better to avoid tramadol and use some other medication. Maybe even low dose morphine can be used for this patient. So what is an opioid? Opioid is a general term which includes all the naturally occurring semi-synthetic and synthetic medications which produce their effect by combining with opioid receptors. So opioids produce their action by combining with opioid receptors, and its action is antagonized by naloxone. So naloxone is the antidote for opioid poisoning. So these are the three: mu, kappa, delta, and sigma are the mu, kappa, and delta. These are the opioid receptors. Okay, sigma is not an opioid receptor. Opioids are classified into three: agonist, antagonist, and agonist-antagonist. So this is the main difference between agonist and agonist-antagonist. So you can see agonist. An example of agonist is morphine. When you increase the dose of morphine, when you increase the dose of morphine, you can see there will be corresponding pain relief. Okay, so you have given this much, and pain relief will be this much, and you increase the dose, then you have this much pain relief. So as you increase the dose of agonist, you will get complete pain relief theoretically. So morphine is a pure agonist. But in case of agonist antagonist, what happens? You can see up to a point you will get increased pain relief. Up to this point, you will have increased pain relief. But after that, if you even if you increase the dose of agonist antagonist, you will not get pain relief. So the examples of agonist antagonist are pentazocine and fortwin. Sorry, pentazocine is available as fortwin. Pentazocine and buprenorphine. Okay, so buprenorphine is an agonist antagonist. There is a maximum dose for pentazocine or buprenorphine. So we will move on to side effects of opioid. So what are the side effects? The definition of side effect is these are the adverse effects with therapeutic doses of opioid. So you have given some opioid to a patient and patient has good pain relief. He will have some adverse effects which are known as side effects. What are those? Constipation, nausea, vomiting, sleepiness and tiredness, itching, dry mouth, and urinary hesitancy. So constipation occurs in almost 95% of patients, and it will be there as long as the patient is on opioid. So you have to continue with laxatives as long as the patient is on opioid, and you have to use regular stimulant laxative, bisacodyl or sodium pycosulfate or senna. You should not use methyl cellulose or ispagula husk, which are available as powders, which we usually prescribe to the patient. It should not be given. It will increase the opioid-induced constipation. And next is nausea and vomiting. It occurs in about 30% of patients, but only during the first few days. It is self-limiting. So you have to use antiemetic only for 3 to 5 days. After that, our body will get accustomed to it and nausea and vomiting will disappear. And it is due to stimulation of a center in the brain, which is known as chemoreceptor trigger zone. And you can use haloperidol, metoclopramide, domperidone, ondansetron. All these are medications acting on chemoreceptor trigger zone. Next side effect is sleepiness and tiredness. And this also occurs in the first few days of the treatment. So after 3 to 5 days, the patient will get over this. You need not do anything for this. And we already talked about side effects. Now toxic effects. What are toxic effects? So these are the adverse effects when the patient takes more than the required dose. So the most important signs and symptoms are delirium, myoclonus, and drowsiness. So if the patient has this problem, you have to reduce the dose of opioid. So these are this will be some of the problems which you have in mind. Opioids, many people doesn't like to prescribe, thinking that it can produce opioid induced respiratory depression. How common it is? So you can see this is a systematic review in 2003, which says patient takes their medication by mouth and combined with normal gradual increase in dose ensures that respiratory depression is unusual. So respiratory depression is unusual, especially when the patient is taking oral opioids. And another important thing is pain is physiological antagonist to respiratory depression. So if the patient has pain, patient will not have respiratory depression. Okay, addiction. This is also, there is literature regarding this. The people think that physical dependence and psychological dependence are same. It is not so. So addiction is psychological dependence. Patient has a crave for the drug. And you have to understand that addiction is a neurobiologic disease. it's a disease, okay, with genetic predisposition. So if you have a gene for addiction and if you have favorable environment, you may become addicted. And this is the most important slide which you have to look. Morphine, out of this, morphine is the cheapest drug. Fentanyl patch, you can see 12.5 microgram costs about 250 to 400 rupees, whereas morphine will cost only 3 rupees 50 paise. That is 15 rupees for 3 days, whereas fentanyl patch 250 rupees for 3 days. And methadone is also comparable to morphine. It's only 4 rupees 50 paise. So thank you, and we can have some quick questions now. Any questions? Any questions? You can type it in the chat box or you can unmute and ask. Yeah, Dr. Vimlesh Pandey asked, is buprenorphine not used for pain relief? Okay, so as I told you earlier, buprenorphine is an agonist-antagonist medication. So there is a maximum dose uh, uh, up to which you can increase the dose of buprenorphine. So in chronic pain management, buprenorphine is not usually used. And if you look at the literature, morphine is the gold standard. And another problem would be buprenorphine tablets, sublingual tablets as well as patches are available. But buprenorphine patch lasts for 7 days and it will cost the lowest strength patch will cost about more than 1,000 rupees. And when the patient is on higher doses of morphine, you will not be able to convert it into buprenorphine also. So buprenorphine is not a commonly used medication for chronic pain relief.
Sir, one chat from Sister Anisha, not now, before. When doctors say 10 milligram for those taken weak opioids, does that include opioids like tramadol all?
Yeah. So which are the weak opioids? The weak opioids available in India as of now is tramadol. Previously, yeah, tramadol and codeine. Codeine is not usually now. Um, so I meant tramadol or even tapentadol, which is the newer derivative of tramadol. So if the patient is on these two medications, you can directly start the patient on 10 milligram of morphine 4 hourly. Any more questions? Morphine not available at present, which is the next best pain relief medication. Then, yeah, when you start patient on morphine, you have to discontinue tramadol. Usually, 2 opioids, 1 week and 1 strong opioid is not combined together. Okay, so when you start morphine for a patient who was already on tramadol, you have to discontinue the tramadol. Okay, Daniel says morphine is not available. So maybe tramadol and if anything else is available, you can use it. A fentanyl patch, but you have to understand it is costly. But compared to buprenorphine, it is a better option. Fentanyl is a pure mu agonist.
Dr. Shashi Shekhar have raised hand.
Okay.
Do you want to ask anything, Shashi Shekhar? You can unmute and speak. Yes. You
Yes,
can ask
I
now.
have one doubt.
Yeah, please.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, you can speak.
If there is a seizure patient and he is about 60 years old and he is having the very severe pain and he is on phenytoin. So can we give to any analgesic to reduce the pain or not? That is my question.
60-year-old patient with seizure.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this question we already discussed, but this patient with a seizure, it will be better to avoid tramadol, considering tramadol can reduce the seizure threshold. So if morphine is available, you can give low doses of morphine. So maybe if the patient has severe pain, you can start with 5 milligram of morphine directly, 4-hourly, and SOS.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Sir, can we move on to the patient story?
Okay.
Sister Michelle?
Oh, yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay. I'm Michelle from National Cancer Society of Malaysia, Sarawak here. So today I'll present a case presentation from my side, which this patient has already passed on. She's 66 years old, female, and then stage 4 right lung adenocarcinoma. So the initial assessment during my first visit, when I see her, was she complained of this right subcostal chest pain, short of breath on exertion, require oxygen supplement, require assistance for her daily activities, and able to transfer from bed to wheelchair. But she complained of loss of appetite, only tolerate minimally. She has difficulty to clear her bowels and require enema or suppository to help her to ease. So then later few weeks when I went to see her, her assessment was during her condition deteriorates. Complaint pain over her chest and right subcostal chest area during our visit. Through the visual assessment that I done, patient seems comfortable, but when we ask her that are you having pain, then she will say that yes, there is. When further explore with the family, how they really know that the patient is pain is that the patient will ask for pain medication very frequently, and if they don't give, the patient will scream at them saying that she's in pain. So how is that? So when I go through her notes, then I noted that there were 5 to 6 times extra doses given of subcut morphine. Sorry, it's aqueous morphine 10 milligram. So she has short of breath, okay, require oxygen supplement up to 5 liters. And then patient started to mumble to herself, not sleeping, restless, sit up and lay back, arranging pillow, and then she also took out her oxygen. During that time, she's not tolerating already urine. Next. So history of illness, diagnosed with stage 4 right lung adenocarcinoma in year 2019. February 2019 to February 2020, she is on chemotherapy. Her disease progressed, noted on and off hemoptysis till November 2019, and then given radiotherapy to chest total infection, that given chemotherapy also 6 cycle till June 2020. CT scan shows worsening of lung nodule, new liver and right adrenal and right scapular metastases. The condition was generally poor, unfit for further treatment. So best supportive care was established. So on examination, first visit, patient conscious, look weak, lying on bed, no short of breath, comfortable on 3 liters, complaint pain over right costal chest, on and off, throbbing, and sometimes radiating to the back. Pain score is around 6 when in pain. BNO 5 days, claim did not take any medication to relieve the constipation. So bowel sounds sluggish, no pressure injuries at the moment, right arm slight swelling. So during patient deteriorates on our examination is that she opened eyes when called, very weak, noted SOB, auscultate chest, noted the right side lung air entry absent, complaint pain, feeling uncomfortable, agitated, trying to adjust herself, noted that she is mumbling to herself, unable to access the pain score during that time. So noted both arms swell, BO 3 times large amount of soft stools as claimed by the son, PU in Pampers, abdomen soft. Next. So treatment during our first visit is that we resume this Bisacodyl 2 tablet on night, and then syrup lactulose 15 ml on night, give a Revin Inimastat, and then her tab gabapentin 300 mg BD. Start her on Panadol 1 gram PRN, continue her patch, which is 62 microgram fentanyl, and then aqueous morphine 24 milligram BTP. So advice to put cold compress or warm compress for area whichever is comfortable for her. And then we also did apply this Ketortok patch to the area that she complained of pain. Okay. So treatment during the condition deteriorate, we off all oral medication, convert her medication to subcut morphine 10 milligram BTP, and then start her on CSCI morphine 50 mg plus haloperidol 7.5 milligram over 24 hours. Continue fentanyl patch 62 microgram, and then start her on subcut Buscopan 20 mg PRN. Prepare family or patient condition, and then family wishes to have lessen patient pain and be calmer. So then advise promote ventilation in the room to blow fan towards patient, reduce visitors, and help to position patient to at least 60-degree sitting position. So advise to keep calm. So psychosocial aspect, so patient is actually a divorcee. She had 2 sons, both married with kids. Elder son stay in Kuala Lumpur and had 2 children. Younger son do not stay with the patient, but in the same country. He had 5 children of his own. Patient was a headmaster of a well-known university. Her income source usually comes from her own pension fund. Elder son back from Kuala Lumpur become her main carer for the patient, and the younger son will be helping to buy those needs supplies for the patient or collect medication. So during our involvement, son seems to be very concerned about the charges of the rental of equipment. So the 2 sons were not open to talk on any psychosocial aspect issue. So their religion are Islam, and they recite their prayers at home for the patient. So the medication during our first visit is fentanyl patch 62 microgram over 20, for 72 hours, aqueous morphine 24 mg BTP, tab gabapentin 300 mg on night, syrup lactulose 50 ml on night, tab Bisacodyl 2 tab on night, and tab Panadol 1 gram PRN. During the deterioration state, fentanyl patch maintained a 62 microgram over 72 for 72 hours. CSCI morphine 50 milligram, haloperidol 7.5 milligram over 24 hours. So, and also subcut morphine 10 mg BTP and subcut Buscopan 20 mg PRN. So main concern, pain, her breathlessness, her delirium, and maybe some psychosocial problem, query, financial issue. So in summary, the patient was under our care for 21 days. She passed on 5 days after her condition starts to deteriorate. There was an elevation of pain when her condition starts to deteriorate. So a new area of pain was identified, which is her chest. When her condition deteriorate and unable to tolerate orally, all oral medication will convert to injectables, and a continuous subcutaneous infusion was prescribed to provide continuous pain control and treat delirium. Morphine was used to treat the pain and breathlessness, and a mixture of morphine and haloperidol was used to treat the pain, breathless, and delirium. So family wishes patient to have a last day at home, less pain, and peacefully. Thank you. So discussion point that what I want to ask is that what other assessment can we do to manage the pain, and what other different pain management would you do to manage the pain, and when do we consider using continuous subcutaneous infusion? What areas of psychosocial would we want to discuss in this type of cases, and how would we do differently with this case scenario?
Thank you, Sister Michelle, for the excellent presentation. So anybody need any more clarification? Otherwise, we can move on to the discussion points.
I just want to ask Michelle.
Yes.
So it was a very excellent presentation, and I see that patient died peacefully in your care. So that was good to know, and you were able to help her. I would like to ask, you have written, Shiva, can you come to the previous slide? Previous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, previous. Yeah, okay. So Michelle, just want to clarify the first point. You have written fentanyl patch 62 microgram over 24 hours for 72 hours. Can you explain that?
It's actually 62 microgram, and then it is continuously, it will excrete.
Was she on 62 microgram patch?
Yes, when I first saw her, she's already started on 62 microgram already.
Okay, so I just want to clarify something in this. So if you apply a patch which is 62 microgram, that means 62 microgram is released every hourly, not 24 hours. So the strength of fentanyl patch indicates that much amount of fentanyl is liberated every hourly. So 62 microgram patch means 62 microgram is released every hourly. And the duration of action is for 3 days.
Correct.
Okay. So when you saw this patient, she was already on 62 microgram patch, wasn't it?
Yes, correct.
And she was on aqueous morphine 24 milligram for breakthrough pain.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So Shiva can take over now.
First question, what other assessment you would like to do to manage her pain?
I would like to hear from participants what they would do in such situation. Okay. If nobody is commenting on this, I think some of these questions can be clubbed together. What other one would you like to do manage her pain? What areas of psychosocial would you want to discuss about this patient? Those can be combined together. This patient, as per my understanding from Michelle's presentation, I understand that she has a subcostal pain, but we don't have much details about pain characteristics. What is the quality, radiation, severity, etc. But I think it is this patient is a divorcee, and we don't know what is her background. Is this divorce causing any problems psychologically? Is she thinking of her husband? Are there any problem with her sons? Maybe the sons may be blaming her for the divorce. I don't know. So I think this is an important area which we need to explore in this patient, uh, and understand the psychological, social, financial, and spiritual problems of this patient would be great importance, because we understand that pain is not only a physical sensation, it is also uh, other dimensions. It has also other dimensions, like the other dimensions of suffering, psychosocial, spiritual suffering. So we have to clearly understand those areas. And if this patient has physical pain completely, and then uh, I think was she comfortable with 62 microgram patch and breakthrough morphine, Michelle?
Initially when I see her,
Hmm.
she's on the fentanyl patch and the morphine, as I have said.
Hmm.
It seems like she do complain of pain. That's why I asked her to take Panadol.
Hmm.
And then I increased her gabapentin to twice a day.
What do you think is the cause of pain?
Because every time when I see her, seems to be very comfortable. When you go in, and then she's just lying on the bed and she's comfortable. But when you ask her, she will tell you, yes, I'm having pain, and my pain is about 6. So, but I know that because she has a lung cancer, so basically this subcostal pain
Mm.
is there, and it's actually like more to dull sharp, dull pain like that.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay.
And she did mention that it radiates, so that's why she's also on this gabapentin.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay. I think we can have three reasons for this. Maybe the lesion in the lung, which is causing pain, or the lesion might have infiltrated into the chest wall, or this patient can have a bony metastasis to the ribs. And you already told that this patient has liver metastasis, which will be also another cause of pain in the subcostal region. So uh, uh, she is on 62 microgram patch, and I was calculating how much would be the equivalent dose of oral morphine. So I see that it will be about 150 milligram of oral morphine per day.
Correct.
Not
Yes.
150 milligram of oral morphine, uh, yeah, per day.
Over 25. Yes.
Yeah. So that would be about 25 milligram morphine for our day.
Mm.
Okay. So maybe I think this you can. So she had delirium, isn't it?
Yes. At the end, she had a delirium.
Delirium. Was there myoclonus?
No.
No.
But
Yeah.
there may be, I'm not sure whether that her breathing was a bit abnormal. It was a bit slow.
Mhm.
Mm,
Okay. So you mean to say that it was less than the normal respiratory rate?
correct, correct.
Okay. So we don't know what is the reason for that. If it is less than 10, then you may not be able to increase the dose of uh, morphine and fentanyl. So I
Correct.
think I might go in for methadone in this patient because methadone can be of can give good pain relief for the neuropathic as well as nociceptive pain component.
Mm,
And this patient has delirium, and probably we can think that it might be due to opioid toxicity, which I am not
mm,
very sure. But still, I would consider for any patients with higher doses of opioids, methadone would be a better choice if the patient doesn't have proper pain relief. And another thing which I would consider in this patient would be steroids. If
ah,
this patient pain is due to the mass in the lung, uh,
mm-hmm,
so this steroids can reduce the peritumor edema, which will help to reduce the pain, as well as it can also help with the pain due to capsular stretch of the liver, because a liver already has metastasis.
mm.
Okay. Uh, yeah, I
There
see.
was a question
Yeah.
asked if, because I think we do not really use methadone in our area.
Do you have methadone?
I probably think that no.
Okay, okay. Mhm.
Uh, so if like this, what would you suggest?
Yeah. So uh, maybe opioids may be an option. Sorry, steroid, dexamethasone.
Mm,
I might give some 8 to 16 milligram per day as a single dose, which can help this patient, I think. Then the dose of gabapentin, I think it was for neuropathic pain, and it was 300 milligram BD. And the
mm,
dose which we can use to treat neuropathic pain is in the range of you can even go up to 3.6 gram per day. So that is the max 1200 to 3600 milligram is the
mm.
normal maintenance dose for neuropathic pain. So maybe the dose of gabapentin can be increased, and you can also add tricyclic antidepressant like amitriptyline if you are suspecting a neuropathic pain component. Maybe amitriptyline start with 25 milligram HS, and you can increase it up to 75 milligram.
Mm.
Then if this patient had a good prognosis, I may also explore the possibility of radiation to the painful area. Maybe 1 or 2 fractions can help this patient with managing pain if the patient has opioid toxicity especially.
But during the time that she delirium, she's not able to tolerate orally. So
Mm.
what do you suggest?
Okay. So as you have already given, either it can be given subcutaneously or can be given parectally.
Mm,
So if you are giving parectally, same dose, you were giving how much? 24 milligram.
or you mean the oral morphine,
Yeah,
is it?
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So 24 milligram, it can be given parectally.
Same dose.
Yeah, same dose, same dose.
So it's using the aqueous morphine, then we inject into through
Uh,
the rectal, is it?
uh, So actually, the literature advises to use fast-acting tablet. Okay, but I think if it is smaller in quantity, how much ml would be this 24 milligram?
The 12, 12 point, some around there, yeah, 12.5, because it's 5 mils is equal to 10 milligram.
Okay, okay. So if you administer any medications rectally, like morphine, it should not be in big volume, because it will work like an enema. So small volumes would be better. So maybe 12 ml of aqueous solution may work. I am not familiar with aqueous solution, because we have tablets, and literature advises to administer fast-acting tablet. So if that is not working, as you have given, subcutaneous injection for breakthrough pain would be a good idea. So you have to give half of the oral dose. So 24 milligram, half is 12 milligram. 12 milligram subcutaneously would be good for this patient.
Sir, one more chat. Any other alternative of medication if there is no methadone available?
Yeah, that's what we were discussing. Radiation, steroids, etc., and optimizing the dose of fentanyl and morphine. What other different pain management you would do in managing her pain? Okay, so that we have already discussed. When do you consider to use subcutaneous, continuous subcutaneous infusion? So this is something which we usually do for patients. If you remember the metabolism of morphine, it goes into the liver and it is converted into two metabolites, morphine 3 glucuronide and morphine 6 glucuronide. And morphine 6 glucuronide is the component which will give you pain relief, but it is formed only in 5 to 10%. In some patients, because of the problems with cytochrome P enzyme, which metabolizes the morphine, the amount of M6G formed will be very, very less. And they will be having more and more of M3G, which is not useful from for pain relief. So if you suspect that this patient, okay, can have more of M3G, you can try with morphine, either subcutaneous infusion or with IV infusion. You can do both. So this is one indication for continuous subcutaneous infusion. And for those patients whose pain is suddenly need SOS doses, you can try with continuous subcutaneous infusion. And those who are unable to swallow medications orally is another indication for continuous subcutaneous medication. Delirium is would be another indication for continuous subcutaneous infusion. So these are the and nausea and vomiting. Some patients can have nausea and vomiting, and then they will not be able to take it orally. So if you give oral tablet, the patient will vomit it out and will have severe pain. So in those situations, you have to give morphine by parenteral route, either subcutaneously or by intravenously. So by continuous infusion, you are maintaining a constant blood level, so that there will be no peaks of morphine concentration in the blood. So this patient whom you have seen that slowing of respiratory rate, maybe continuous subcutaneous infusion might be good for this patient, because this will not produce a peak concentration like in oral morphine. This will be more of stabilized or continuous constant level of morphine. Okay. How you would do differently in this case scenario? Okay, Michelle, can you tell me what did you mean exactly with this question?
Actually, it's because I was thinking, I'm not sure whether continuous subcutaneous infusion was the right choice for this patient.
Mhm.
So I was thinking, is there any other way to handle this type of case scenario?
No, I think you did it right, Michelle, because towards the end she was unable to swallow anything, and she was on high dose of fentanyl, and the breakthrough she was on morphine. So it is
Mm,
indeed uh, it is sure that we need the patient needs morphine or something else which is to be given parenterally. So you have given it subcutaneously, so which is the least painful route. And I think that was the correct decision to give it subcutaneously along with haloperidol,
mm,
because the patient also had delirium. Uh,
mm.
so that was a correct decision, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Shiva, do you have anything to add?
No, sir. You have covered almost all the aspects. So we can stop it here.
Okay.
So thank you, sir, for the detailed presentation. Thank you, Sister Michelle, for the patient story.
Thank you.
And request everyone to please attend this feedback.
Thank you all.